So this new coronavirus actually opened up a new scenario when it comes to on-site interviews, and I've received numerous reports during the couple of last few days of people asking me, hey Dan, my employer just proposed that instead of doing the on-site interview face-to-face, why wouldn't we do it to video link? And sometimes they even imposed this. They canceled the travel arrangements in favor of a video link interview. So in this video, I'm going to try to explain to you some of the pros and cons to allow you to better understand, on if you have the choice, to make the best decision here, and if you don't have the choice, what are some of the things that you might want to consider setting up the scene for the video interview. The first thing you would want to know here is that remote video interviews are actually more common than you think. So they're a very common thing. These are not only for international candidates. These happen all the time, and proof is that most of the time when you pop in to a face-to-face interview, there will be some members showing up via video link to these interviews. And it's different cultures that prefer video interviews to on-site interviews. Also, for super senior roles, it's very hard for them to make 7 people available during the same day, at consecutive time slots. So that's why some of them will always jump in via video link as well. So it's very common that these interviews are via video link, and it's not necessarily a bummer, a minus that you're running this via this method. The other thing I think is very important to understand is, and to qualify on what's the best method for you, is how do you actually prefer to do it? Do you prefer the face-to-face conversation, or are you fine via video? If you've never done via video, I can tell you it doesn't take a lot of time to get used to. But still, if you prefer this for the sake of, reading the room better, yes, I believe that's a valid argument, and I believe you should push into that direction, so long as you are the type of person who does better seeing people face to face. Personally, I specialize in video interviews, and I very much prefer, this approach where I would be able to see someone and to listen to them as a method to screen them and to understand what they're actually looking for. So that's what I do. But your experience might vary. Now, the next thing to keep in mind is running a video conference. It's also is going to the internet, so you must have the capacity on the line. My experience has shown that actually the quality of my video conferences is better than the quality of my audio calls. So in other words, what I notice is that often when I have a video conference with someone, the connection is so much better than if I called someone. So I would say that the connection strength is not such a big issue as it is for a phone interview, which was quite surprising in my opinion. And if there are some interference on the line, don't worry about that. Those don't matter. The sound matters the most, and often these employers have their own conferencing methods which are optimized, on the sound, the quality of the sound. And this brings me to probably of the most important criterias for these calls, and that is what matters the most in a video interview is what you say, not how you look. Right? So similarly, what I'm saying in this video matters a lot more than what I look. And how, am I, maybe I could invest more resources into having better transitions or more effects or a better background or whatever else. But finally, the ultimate call of these things is the content that I talk about. And this is the same both in a video interview and in the face-to-face interview. So the other argument you want to take to consider here is flying in cross-country, oftentimes for an on-site interview can have a toll on your freshness for the interview, and that flight might take some time, which that time you could use it, either to prepare, either to rest before the interview. So you win some time actually, ideally, if you do it via video link, and I find this also super important. Now, just a few cosmetics here. Like when you're running a video interview, if you want and if you feel comfortable investing a little bit of time in the setup, I would definitely recommend you to set up your lighting properly. Like, of course, I just said, like, the content is very important, sound is very important, but sound usually works fine. But the lighting is something that I learned through time that is something quite essential with these things. If you look in my video right now, I have a light coming from that direction, and this part of my face is darker. This means that I'm trying to transmit a more melodramatic scene, right? If I have a light straight into my face, it would basically look quite boring, quite not interesting. So by putting lighting and having a good light in front of you is actually a very important qualifier. Many people who are just starting with these things only have a light behind them and their face is not visible at all. That's obviously, that's not one of the best setups to say, of course, unless you want to take advantage of the situations. Sound, yeah, as I said, is important, but these days most computers, most mobile phones are optimized for these things, so that should be fine. If you're using a mobile phone, I would highly recommend you to use a tripod or something, because sitting for 1 hour with the phone in your hand will be uncomfortable, right? And if you have 5 interviews, if you do it for 5 interviews in a row, that will be even more uncomfortable. So I would definitely recommend you do this as well. Now, another maybe a bit overrated advantage of video interviews is that you can use a cheat sheet, which, by the way, you could also use during an on-site interview. And that cheat sheet usually contains the questions for dumb, or the names of your story for easier referencing, and some other information if you want. What you want to know about these cheat sheets is that they are overrated, in my experience. Why they are so overrated? Well, simply because, when if I ask you a question and you have a cheat sheet and the first thing you do is look at your cheat sheet, you lose some precious time to actually use your memory to come up with the best possible story, not necessarily cheat to find out the best possible story. And let's say, okay, you find that story and you'll give me your story and you'll be fine. Yes, but the problem is that some people get stuck easier than others. And if you're the type of person who you get stuck in spite of the fact that you prepared for the interview, then using a cheat sheet will introduce extra stress on yourself. Because imagine I ask you a question for which you haven't prepared for, which is actually what happens in all interviews, in all on-site interviews. Your reaction will be, you look at the cheat sheet, but you won't find any answers. So then what do? While you block, you just doubled your probability that you'll get stuck. So these cheat sheets are useful for the right type of candidates and for the people that understand, basic things about these cheat sheets, such as, for example, if you read out an answer from your cheat sheet, it will very much sound like an answer that you took from there, right? So what you want to do is maybe take some ideas, some key points on your cheat sheet, and then take it from there. Maybe print out the company's leadership principles and core values and have them somewhere nearby. For example, I have a cheat sheet right now just under the camera from which I take the main ideas. But overall, you should really decide on what's the best approach for you. And you could even go as far as to ask them, hey, are you comfortable if I have a cheat sheet with me, or which I bullet pointed all my stories, just so I can remember them? Are you comfortable with this approach? Trust me, they will appreciate these things because they've also been through interviews, and people appreciate sincerity more than you think. And this is a precious thing to have in a job interview.